What is going on, y'all? Welcome to the Joel Friday TV podcast. I am Joel Friday. Bienvenido. Welcome to the show. It is Wednesday. It is a new day. We got some interesting stuff. We got a special guest. We're going to get into it right now. But really quick, before we get started, hit that like button, smack it, lay the smack down on the like, subscribe, and share button. Tell your peoples about the show so we can get the message out and the subscribers up. You guys know how it goes. You still got time. Do it now. Topics to be covered. I'm actually going to save that. We're going to save revealing what the topics are going to be covered. But we got some good stuff. Also, remember, as some of you guys know, and those who don't know, it is a talk show, so you can call in at 888-775-3773, and we could talk about past shows, current show, topics at any topic at hand, whatever you want to get into, we can talk about it. We can argue, we can disagree, we can agree, fellowship, whatever you want to do. I'm down for it. So let's get into it. Really quick, if you cannot call in, but you still have a question or comment, or you just want to support the show, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/JoelFridayTV. The link is in the description. And there you can send your question or comment, and I will read it live on air. I've been doing pretty good with them, huh, chat? I've been doing pretty good. So you can do that, or you can go directly to YouTube and hit the super chat button and send your question or comments there as well. You do have those options. I appreciate you guys tuning in. How's it going, chat? Nice. Last thing here is we are on audio podcast. So if you just want to listen to the audio only, the past shows, you can podcast the past shows audio only by going to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Substack, all those podcasting platforms. I'm on there. Search Joel Friday TV podcast and you'll find those on there as well. So it is not live, but you can check out all my past episodes up until now. Amazing stuff. So, today, as you guys see by that title, I have a special guest by the name of Jake Julius. Jake Julius is the host of a Rattlesnake TV. So he has a podcast himself on his YouTube channel called Rattlesnake TV. And he is in studio. So some of you guys don't know who he is. He was actually on Jesse Peterson's Fallen State a while back. I'm thinking like several months ago. And this morning he was actually on Jesse Lee Peterson's radio show. So he's definitely been here a couple times. I think he's an interesting guy. He talked about some things today on Jesse's show that I want to ask him about. And I think it'll be entertaining for you guys to see. So welcome to the show, Jake. I appreciate you coming in.
My pleasure, brother. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Right on.
Has anyone ever told you that you look like a guy called Loyal Kana?
No.
Have you ever heard of Loyal Kana?
Uh-uh.
He's a British rapper, and I swear you guys are twins.
Really? If you can, Hassan,
we didn't look him up. It's Loyle, and then last name Carner.
Lil Kana. He's a British rapper?
Loyal Kana, British
Loyal
rapper.
Kana.
One of my favorite rappers. So
right on.
pleasure to be with his Siamese twins today, bro.
Right on. Well, I appreciate you coming into the show today. The reason why I wanted to bring you on was you seem like a smart guy just in general. And Jesse asked you I think he asked you about the dynamic between men and women. And he said specifically, you said men like to provide and women like to nurture. And I wanted to ask you, among some other things, why do you think that though in the natural nature of things is men wanting to provide and women like wanting to nurture, why do you think women tend to reject this nowadays, even though that's like a natural thing?
Well, I think it's to do with what we'd call like the sisterhood over everything. So last night, for example, I was on the Whatever podcast, and we were talking to these young ladies about this exact dynamic, about men and women being providers and protectors and being, diametrically opposite in their interests, but it being the perfect union.
Right.
And when I was telling these ladies, because they're young, 21-year-old, very impressionable college student feminists, that sort of thing. And when I was telling these young ladies about some truths and some facts in the order of the world, God over man, man over woman, woman over child, and how this is the beautiful yin and yang of the world. And it actually is a beautiful and wonderful thing that creates a balance and order in life. They would just completely reject it. And it would almost be like my words would physically bounce off their head. But I think that, like I said, it's about the sisterhood and it's not about the truth. Because feminism is actually very cultish. In its origins, feminism is actually very occultish. And it's got some Marxist origins as well. So if you look, there's a book called Occult Feminism by a lady named Rachel Wilson, and it goes through the whole entire history of feminism, and that's a must read. And I do think that there's this really tribal nature about feminism, that it's almost like they deify it. It's like their god is feminism, and you can tell them facts and logic, and unless they're extremely open-minded, they're not going to actually change their mind. So that's what I find, and it's almost like they've been programmed and conditioned to think that it's a bad thing that women are nurturers, and that's somehow lesser than men.
And so true what you're saying. And what's crazy is that I think exactly that, the programming. Like, there's a natural way, meaning like the natural way women and men do certain things, or like their interests, right? When people really pay attention to the things that they're into, or even when it comes to, I know we're talking about the dog thing this morning, but even when it comes to certain things, there is a natural nurturing energy that women have. But the programming, they're lost in the mind, it seems like, especially nowadays, where the programming in the mind and all these things, they believe these things that necessarily deep down they really don't believe, but they're caught up in all this like indoctrination. So I always wonder, like, how do you get somebody to see the truth, but then I also come to the conclusion that maybe you just can't get them.
It's tough, man. It's tough. Like, honestly, when I have conversations with, and like, this is a disparate sort of range of girls that I was talking to last night, because a lot of girls actually pulled out from the show and didn't come to the show. So we had to go to the street and just go and talk to random girls, and I helped them out by doing that because, like they needed a little bit of help doing it. So I was talking to girls and I was saying, hey, do you guys want to do a podcast tonight? So these are random girls from a cross-section of the population. And they were like feminists, and the conditioning was very strong. So it makes you think that There's a guy called Rollo, I think his name's Rollo Tomasi, says this, that feminism is in the air that they breathe. It's in the water that they drink, and it's almost, unless you're really shielded from it, then it's very hard to escape, unfortunately. And like you said, it kind of makes you think that you can't tell people because it's the sisterhood over the truth sometimes. But I do believe that if they eventually come round to it, it's probably after 25 or maybe even after 30 sometimes, when they start to realize that their biological clock is ticking and they're not going to be 22 forever sipping margaritas on a beach in Tulum.
Right.
So
Do you think that men can do anything to help the process, or do you think it's responsibility of men to try to change them? Do you even think men can change them?
I think, and this is maybe hopeful thinking, but I think that if men lean into their own masculinity, then women will follow. Just like I think that if women were to lean into their femininity, then men will follow. But unfortunately, not unfortunately, because it's just the way of the world, that men do have to lead the way. So if men are leading into their masculinity and, plugging into a church and being plugged into other Christian men and other men with good values and building communities, women are going to see that and they're going to think, oh, well, this is what these guys want. And you're already seeing a lot of that, man. Like, you're already seeing a lot of girls who are sort of taking that step and putting like the cross in their bios on Instagram. And even though they might not necessarily believe it, the seed is sort of planted where they believe, oh, wait, hold on. Maybe these guys that are actually, have self-respect, want a woman who has self-respect as well. So they're trying to project that. And then I think that the next cultural shift that we're going to see is women actually moving towards faith a little bit more, and towards that being cool and great again. But I think that men have to lead the way, just as is the case.
No, I agree. So you're basically saying that men in general have to be men again, meaning like masculine, and stop trying to cater to the women and lead the way by being an example, and then they'll just follow, type of thing.
And if you think about it, like, what are the women in today's more modern toxic culture? Who are the women that are exalted? If you could think about a few women who get exalted in the modern culture, who would you say?
Taylor Swift, Nicki Minaj.
Yep. And so these are the examples that women are looking up to.
Yeah.
And I looked at the Billboard Top 100 a few days ago, and you look at every single woman on there, and it's the same story.
Yeah.
So these are the idols at the moment, and you've got the TikTok dancing, sort of like people getting all this attention. And unfortunately, we have a whole generation of men who are simps who are sort of giving them all of this attention.
Yeah.
But the cultural pendulum needs to swing if we want to see a change in this. And we need to be seeing principled and moral women who are being put up on a pedestal. And it's our job as guys to put them up on that pedestal.
Yeah.
But we're competing with a whole bunch of very, very dark forces in certain industries. Do you know what I mean? Like,
No, 100. Do you think that, because you said that the guys there's a lot of simps, right? And do you think that the problem is guys chasing women? Do you think that a man should look for a woman in general? And when it comes to dating, like, should he be out looking and trying to find a woman?
What I would say is that if a man is on his purpose and he's a mission-driven man, then he'll have a magnetism for women. Because if a guy is out there and he's working hard and he has other men who like look up to him and people who follow him and people who believe in his mission as well, it's a literal magnet for women. I don't think that you necessarily you don't have to chase women, but if you find a woman that you appreciate and it's like a good, moral Christian woman, fears God, then you can court that woman. I'd say that's a good thing to do, but not chasing necessarily.
Nice. No, I agree. Where do you think that you've gotten these type of your beliefs from? Like upbringing, or where do they come from?
I would say I lost my dad when I was very young. So I realized the effect of losing a father. And then for about 10 years, I was very, very lost from about the age of 14. And like it takes a little bit of hindsight. You don't realize when you're in the eye of the storm, but it takes a little bit of hindsight to realize the masculine influence that was lost in my life. And then I had a heartbreak when I was younger, my first love sort of thing. And then you look back on it and you just cringe so hard and you think, I can't believe I literally put my life aside for that. And then even after that, there was times when I would like simp and do things like that were just really, really
Yeah.
simpy. And the things
Yeah.
that you see in the Hollywood Notebook movies, because this is what is
Right.
propped up as like what a nice guy looks like.
Right.
And in the movies, like the dorky guy gets the girl. You know, she doesn't
Right.
want the football player. She wants so so all of this sort of stuff. You have to
Yeah.
undo that conditioning. And I feel like
Yeah.
in the last few years, I've come into my own. But there is always the risk as well, man, that you can always go down the path of seeing all of these cultural influences, realizing it doesn't work for you, and then becoming very nihilistic and becoming very much like, oh, well, you know, women are terrible and society's lied to me. But at the end of the day, man, you have to own your own masculinity,
Right.
man. You have to come into your own as a man, because women can smell it on you if you don't know who
Yeah.
you are as a man.
They can tell, and a lot of guys don't. A lot of guys, and I think just guys in general, it's very, and I just speak for all of them, including me, is that it can be hard separating those, like, say when you like somebody and you have like this interest for somebody, there's those feelings that want to come up, and then you want to like hang out with them or be around them or talk to them or whatever the case is, but there is that natural separation that should be there so you can stay, logical, right?
Yeah.
And not get caught up in the whole thing. But it seems as if that idea of separation and being manly, this is a new thing that's been introduced to me in my adult years. But growing up, I never knew to not like just be going with your feelings like that, or to think in a logical way.
Yeah.
I was taught, not even taught, but I was just raised in the society to like act upon them. You know what I mean?
And how do you feel like that's changed in terms of the way that you interact with women now?
Well, now it's a little bit different because now I see from like the influences around me. For one, Jesse Lee Peterson being one, and like just looking within myself, finding God. You know what I mean? Like really understanding what that meant, and like overcoming these things and understanding what they are. That came after a while, after I started realizing all the relationships that I've been in were like not working. They were like very problematic.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff would happen in the relationships, and I would end up being like, why would I behave that way? I would do like crazy things, and I just start to see over time that the only way that's gonna change, or the only way, and I think it's ultimately just looking for manhood. I think it's just for me, just trying to figure out what it means to be a man and how to properly do these the proper way to go about
and
it.
oftentimes that means, because like we're people too. We have a heart as well, and we have certain emotions. But it's oftentimes things that you have to be in like control of, and be cognizant of those things as well. And sometimes you do just want to sort of like fall into a puddle as a man, but you just can't do that because
Right.
we have certain responsibilities. And I do think that being a man and being a woman is often about like tapering your vices. Like being a man, we just want to go and, have sex with everything we see sometimes, if we
Right.
really go to our primal
Right.
urges. But you can't do that. And if you can be in control of your lust as a man, then I think that that's really powerful. Being
Yeah.
a woman, they might just be very attracted to status and money and all these sorts of things. That might be a vice that they have to temper. And I think that that's all a part of becoming a man and becoming a woman as well. But and particularly in our case, is being able to be cognizant of all of these different things that we have to be in control of.
And be able to separate yourself from it. I agree. Do you think that it's necessary for a man to completely overcome these emotions and all those things, the ego?
You see, ego is a funny one for me. It's one that I think about quite a lot, because when I think about my ego, I tend to think about ambition and drive and wanting to achieve things and wanting to build things. So I do think that there is a healthy sense of ego, but the more I lean into scripture, the more I realize that it's actually not necessarily you, and you can actually put that faith in God, and you can actually trust God's plan. But I think that for me in particular, one of the biggest struggles for me is letting go. And one of the biggest
Yeah.
struggles for me is any form of submission, because I'm a bit of a control freak when it comes
Right.
to the present and the future.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's actually one that I wrestle with a bit.
Yeah, it's getting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because I've realized that I think, and you can let me know what you think about it, is that I think that the absolute way to have clear or walk in clear understanding and insight is from a spiritual sense is to overcome like the emotions completely, right? Meaning like recognizing that it's like it's not us, it's not who we really are, it's just like the ego nature, the feelings. And but if we want to get married, if we want to have children and have babies, then we have to learn how to separate ourselves from it. But the tricky part is that learning how to separate yourself and learning how to watch it and be able to still lead your family. Because when those emotions come, and I don't know if you can relate, when those emotions come, it's hard to actually lead and be what you need to be in a relationship. So
Absolutely. I've had many different examples of that, and even just in your personal life as well, when certain things come up, whether that be lust or whether that be anger or whether that be anxiety, all of these different emotions, it's hard to actually embody the person you are, and then it's a bad feeling when you look back and you think, I let that emotion get the best of me and control me. And maybe I'm not quite where I need to be in terms of being a leader and being able to lead a family one day. Are you single or are you married?
No, I'm single. Yeah. So, but dating though, I've dated, and I just seen it's. I mean, I live in LA, so it's just definitely the dating scene is interesting. But I've learned that, and I tell my audience all the time is that. I try not to look or seek, because in my experience, every time that I've looked for something, when I seeked it out, I've only wanted one thing, which is the sex, right? And I realized all the times the women in my life, or whether it's relationships or good friendships that in my life, they've had just been added upon me, and they've lasted longer, and they're a little bit deeper. So I try to just tell guys to, including myself, just to trust the process and let go. And even though those desires are like, man, she's beautiful, she's pretty. Those things change too. But like, what is the heart of it? And when it's added, it tends to make a stronger connection.
Most definitely. Yes, I would completely agree. I would say that every time I've gone looking for something, it's been more shallow. But there have been occasions where something's been put in my path that was a bit more special, and it was a bit more aligned. And this is something that I pray on, man. It's like give me the temperance to be able to just accept the process. And God, when I pray to God, sometimes I say, introduce me to one of your daughters. Like I don't want to be out here on the streets, The
letting go thing.
I'm looking for a daughter, and I trust that you'll put one in my path.
And that's hard, and that's what I also say too. It's not an easy thing to do, because obviously, like when you're an attractive guy, and then there's girls who also are looking, but especially girls nowadays too. They kind of throw themselves at you in a way, or make it not even that they throw it out, but they make it obvious that they're interested.
Especially when you're not interested.
Right. Yeah. And you have all these options, and they're like letting you know, like, you can.
Yeah.
So it's not easy to be patient and let it happen, but that comes the part where just being patient and just letting it be.
I feel like it's funny, because I've realized that as a young man, all I ever wanted to do was gain some sort of status and notoriety and stuff, so that women would look at me and women would be attracted to me.
Yeah.
And then when you get there eventually, and you sort of get some semblance of those things that you desired, all of a sudden now I have no interest in just random encounters with women or random women. Like you work and you dream about that as a young man. Oh yeah, I can't wait, because I'm just going to have sex with so many girls. And then you get there, and it's like, I've just got no interest whatsoever. Like it just doesn't fill your cup.
It definitely changes, and I want to ask you about that. I have a couple questions that I want to ask. Do you think that? So let's just say that God puts a woman in your life that you see that can go somewhere, and then you're developing that connection. Do you think that sex should be taken out of the equation, or do you think that temptation is even involved in that moment if it's the right situation, or how do you think that process should go?
You know what? I'm actually in that exact moment at the moment.
Nice.
Which is funny. And I do wonder to myself, if the woman is someone who has waited, and if she is like a Christian, and if she is, for example, waiting till marriage, then I would absolutely. It might be tough, because I've not done that before.
Right.
But I think I'm at a stage in my life now where I'm sort of developing myself to the point where I could do that.
Oh, okay.
But for me, it would be a challenge, man. It would be a challenge.
That's honest.
But then when I do think about it realistically, I think to myself, well, sometimes I go months without sex and it doesn't really affect me. So what is it that I'm actually wanting here? What do I want? Is it the company? Is it the companionship? Is it the feeling? Or is it the bragging rights? When my friends ask me, "Oh, have you had any girls recently?" Do I want to say, "Yeah, man, what do I want there?" So
do you find that, and when you get into those situations, or you guys do the deed, do you find that there's consequences to that, or it doesn't affect you in that way?
You know what? I used to think that having sex for a guy was just like going to the toilet, like, it just doesn't matter. You can just do it. But then when you get older and when you start to, like, if you, here's what I think, like leaning into Christianity and leaning into and like walking with God, you start to feel the light of God. And sometimes I think that the light burns because you begin to see all of your different flaws and you begin to see all of the different things that you've been doing in your life. And that's a lot of the time why I think that people reject this path, is because it hurts when you sort of have to really look in the mirror like this. And one of the things for me is the fact of like being promiscuous in the past, and nothing like overly degenerate, but just like a young guy who just doesn't really have any moral guidance like that. So I look back at it now and I think, I'm not sitting here upset about it, but I definitely wouldn't do it again. I wouldn't seek to emulate it. And if I was speaking to my younger self, I'd probably say, relax. You don't need to. It doesn't make you a better person. You've got more important things to worry about. So
let it go. I found that when I've done that in past relationships, or I've gotten into those situations and that the act has happened, I found that what it did was it clouded her and my judgment on certain things. So what it did, like, enhanced the emotions. And I feel like when that act happens, it makes it harder to see clearly on what is true and what is not. Because what I found is that doing that, the sexual act awakens the emotions more. And men tend to be able to like recognize that, okay, well, I'm just in my emotion right now, and be able to be like, okay, I just got to find my way back. And they're more grounded in seeing clear. But for the women, and not all women, but oftentimes they get lost in that emotion, and then they end up going left, right, up, down, not knowing the difference, and they get caught up in emotion and they can't really see how to get back towards reality. So that's why I've learned over time that staying away from it the best possible just helps both people stay clear. Do you see that in the same way, or?
Well, like I said, it's never really something that I've actually practiced.
Okay.
Is being with somebody and not having sex, because man, I grew up in a very atheist, secular sort of culture, and the idea of waiting is just not. It just doesn't really happen. But now, like I said, I'm in the place where I want to try it, and I want to see how it goes. But it's honestly, it feels like a bit of a mountain to climb, because when all of your relationships have sort of been based off of that in the past, you wonder what is it without it? Well, like what are we doing without? Like we're just gonna, like, are we friends? Like,
That's a good point. That's a good point too. Is because and then I might ask you another question, different subject, but I found in a previous relationship that I was in, I didn't do it. We were together for almost 3 years and we didn't, not at all, nothing. And I was committed to wanting to wait until marriage for it. And what I found in that process is that when there wasn't no sex involved, we had no choice but to focus on the friendship, right? Because oftentimes where connection seems to happen is through sex, meaning like there's this like feeling that we have for each other, like, and when that happens, we think that's a connection, but it's just a feeling. And that's why when it dies, we're either cheating, people cheat, or they look for something else because they were like living off the feeling. But I noticed that when we didn't have that, when we would have problems, we were forced to solve the problems.
Right. It kind of makes sense, man, as well, because
Yeah.
if you think about it like a sugar addiction, for example, every time your sugar goes down, every time you're in you're a bad place, you just eat more sugar, or a drug addiction or something like that. And it's like if you've got sex in the relationship, if maybe you've got nothing to talk about, or maybe there's an underlying problem, maybe that's a way to just to mask it. But also another thing why I want to do this myself and why it's something that I want to embody is because I think about myself in the future having some sort of a role with mentoring young men in some way, because I want to use my platform in a positive way. And I want to direct people towards Christ in the end. I don't really speak about it too much on my channel yet because I'm really still learning a lot myself.
Yeah.
But I want to direct young men in that direction. And if I'm not living that sort of life, and if I'm not embodying that, and if I can't really practice what I preach, then like that, it's not something that I'd talk about, because I only like to really talk about things that I actually do. So I do think that with all of the rampant degeneracy and promiscuity in our society, the way forward is for young men to lead by example. And I think that the way that we do that is we cultivate a generation of young men who are Christians, who are followers of God, but who are masculine and strong. Because one of the problems that I see is that a lot of young men are not attracted to Christianity because they believe that it's like sort of somehow weak. But if we have role models and leaders over the next generation who are aspirational and who are strong and who hit the gym and who are like, like the kind of guys that young men look up to, and they follow God, we can create a bit of a renaissance. So.
No, I agree, and you make a good point, as well as the reason why a lot of men or women don't want to be Christians in general is because Christianity, the face of Christianity, is very weak and soft and fluffy and marshmallowy, and nobody wants to become that because it's not strong.
It's not exciting.
It's not exciting, and it's just it's in a bad light for sure.
I think that if I was to paint the picture for young people, I would say it's one of the ways that you can be a renegade is if you buck the culture, and if you go against the grain, and if you say, no, I'm going to be pursuing morality, and I'm going to be reading the Bible. That's gangster these days,
What's crazy? See, what tends to happen though is that, like, I think where Christianity tend to take a left turn was when they decided that they wanted to like study the Bible. And I'm not big on studying the Bible, and the reason why is because I feel like what Christianity is missing is a real person. You know what I mean? And the reason why the secular world is so popular is because it's issues that they're projecting, right? But it's real issues, right? But the thing about them is that they're out of control and they're celebrating as good, right? But I think Christians tend to hide, and I think Christians tend to not be real. There's this idea of trying to appear as perfect and do all these things instead of just being a real person and talking like a real person, relating to people who are like, doing things that they shouldn't. Because we're all like, we all can relate in that way. But I feel like another, and you can let me know what you think. I feel like a place where Christians also went wrong is studying the Bible, because when you study the Bible, now you have this knowledge and information, and it just kind of hangs over your head, this expectation. And then when you don't reach the expectation, you beat yourself up, you feel like a bad person. When I think that we should just live life and enjoy our life, and let's just say we get in those situations and we end up being tempted and you end up doing the act, but learning from yourself, being aware, learning from it, and not like trying so hard to walk the straight path.
Right.
And I feel like that tends to be the better option.
One of my biggest barriers to entry to actually calling myself a Christian, because I kind of hid it for a few years, was thinking that I've had this degenerate past and I've done all of these things that wouldn't be accepted by a good God-fearing Christian. Who am I to sort of tell anybody what to do? Who am I to try and lead by example? Who am I to try and join the church? So studying scripture for me was about like understanding how to lean into it, and it was about understanding how to have faith as well, and was about just understanding the messages. So if I haven't, and like I'm no expert by any means, but a lot of the questions that I've had are answered by reading C.S. Lewis, for example, by reading Mere Christianity by reading the Screw Tape Letters. I'm not sure if you've heard of those books, but the Christian books, and also by reading the Bible and having like audio books where I'll listen to the Bible and then get asked a few prompted questions. And sometimes, for example, when you're reading the story about the Exodus, they'll ask you a few questions and you're like, that's what that story means. And it's kind of like, okay, so they were angry with God in the desert for 40 years and they were all, and it's like, everyone has that emotion. Everybody gets frustrated with God sometimes, but God is still generous and loving. So,
well, to add to that point, because I think you made a good point to what I had previously said, is that I don't think that it's bad at all to read the Bible. You know what I mean? I used to study the Bible, but I mean, maybe not in the way that you're saying, but I used to study it to like, because I wanted it to like make me feel better. So I used to remember the scriptures. I used to highlight. I used to do all these things, and I didn't really and a lot of the time it was helpful. It was helpful in a lot of ways, but I started like sounding like the Bible. I started like copying the Bible instead of like using my actual personality.
Yeah, okay, I see that.
But I think you make a good point in that if we do read books or the Bible, which I don't think is wrong to do, we should, pick those things up that we read to understand it and not to remember like a math test. You know what I mean?
I would say for me, it's been quite a transformative thing, because I think that human beings are looking for an objective morality. I think that we intrinsically, inherently know that there's some sort of objective morality, and we kind of have to understand that, and then it can be a transform. If you're looking for it, and if you're seeking it actively, and if you're seeking to understand it, then it can be quite a transformative thing. Yeah. And that's why before, when I said the light of God burns sometimes, it's because if you sort of realize where you've been going wrong, it can hurt and it can burn, and you can sort of, but it can change you, and it can be quite transformative. So. I'm grateful for that experience, but I do get what you mean in terms of people starting to sound like the Bible. And do you think it's a problem in terms that you become unrelatable to other people?
I mean, and that's what I want to make clear too, is that I don't think like, and I talk about it a lot on the show, so the people who know me know that I don't ever mean like the Bible's bad, right? Yeah. I just don't like the idea of, because I've seen it in my life, is that studying to remember things. Because when I was remembering these things and I was studying it and doing it every day and all these things, I started just to pick up the language. And there's nothing wrong with picking up the language, but where it becomes wrong is the copying or like using it as a sword or so like imposing it.
Kind of feel like it sort of suffocates your own individuality as well, and it kind of suffocates what you're doing, because you're just sounding like a generic sort of Bible
like a Bible thumper. I sound like I'm being a like the average Christian, and that's off-putting to people. Yeah. When in actuality, it's better for me to speak to my brother in my voice. Right. You know what I mean? Speak to my sister, like my actual brother, my actual sister in my voice, opposed to them never reading the Bible, never going to church, and then hear me quoting a scripture to them. It just kind of is off-putting. You know what I mean?
No, that's actually a good point, man. I'm going to think about that. That's a really good point. Yeah.
So that's what I find to be hard for people to want to even join, because they're like, wow, that's weird language. It's like Chinese. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. But let me ask you something else, because I have these questions I want to get to here. And I don't know how long you can stay. My show is only an hour.
I'll stay, bro.
Oh, okay.
You just kick me out whenever you want me to.
Right on. I appreciate it. So what do you think about, and then I want to circle back to, you said something about like how if men are genuinely seeking, then they'll find it. I want to circle back to that. But what do you think about dating apps? Because that's like a huge thing right now, dating apps, but not even just the apps, but messaging girls and guys on Instagram, Facebook. Like, what do you think about that whole thing?
I've used all of the dating apps. I mean, Tinder, I don't really know any other ones besides Tinder, Hinge, and Bumble. I've used all three of those. Yeah. I deleted them all now. I don't use them all. But, I was using the, Bumble about a month ago. Okay. I'm not going to act like I haven't used it recently. But, it's very, the quality of women on Bumble is not a very high standard. And I'm just being honest about that, because every time I've met a girl on Bumble, you know
Yeah.
that there's a lot of validation, and with that swiping for girls,
Yeah.
I get like 80% of guys that are swiping
Yeah.
right. Like they can, a lot of them just go on there just for the attention, just for the
Yeah.
dopamine hit, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas guys, it's much more of an uphill battle, and oftentimes this might sound a bit cocky, but
Yeah.
I'll be like, even if I match a girl, I'll be like, would I, if I saw you in person, would I be interested?
Right.
I probably wouldn't. But
Right. Right.
this thing lowers your standard. And then every time I've met a really good girl who I've
Yeah.
been actually interested in, they haven't been near the dating apps. So
Right.
I do believe that the best way to do it is Instagram. I think can be okay, but it has to be fortuitous if you
Yeah.
want to meet a girl. Like
Yeah.
because I do sometimes shows like this and whatever, like then I've had an occasion where I've had like a nice girl who's slid into my DMs and we've talked. But
Right. 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 Right.
but
Right.
people meet online these days, so
Yeah.
we've got to find a way
Yeah,
to do it. But
Yeah, I'm not even totally like, and I totally understand what you're saying too. I'm not even totally against like these things. The only thing that my concern comes from is like, because like I said, I've seen it in myself. It's like there's like this like desperate, what would you say, like unwillingness to just wait it out or just to trust the process, because oftentimes guys, yeah, like there's guys whose intentions are well and we want marriage or we want like a family and stuff like that, but sometimes we're not always willing to wait for it, right? And I feel like you said, a lot of the times on these dating apps with the men and the women is that like just looking for something.
I'll tell you what I think it is. I believe that we live in a culture right now where sexuality is everything. So if you look back 70, even 60 years ago, what was a status symbol for a man? It was being married, and it was having a wife, and it was having children. Nowadays, if you look around at our culture, what are the status symbols? Having a Bugatti, having lots of girls under your arm, having all of this attention, having some ice on your wrist.
Yeah.
You know? So that's the status symbols these days.
Yeah.
And I believe that people kind of tend to follow culture like that, obviously. So if that's the status symbols these days, then you want to have some really nice Instagram photos and you want to look nice and buff and jacked next to your car, and you want to have lots of girls, you know, you want to be going on dates with girls and sleeping with girls on Bumble, and then that makes you a high status man. And then you can tell all your friends that, you know, you're a high value man. Whereas you and I wouldn't think that, because I would kind of like laugh at that now.
Right.
But
yeah,
that I think it's according to culture.
So. Yeah, and it's just a crazy thing. I think I don't think everybody means to go to do these things out of like feeding the ego or doing wrong. You good? Feeding the ego or doing wrong, but it's more so like not understanding that we have to discipline ourselves, meaning like a lot of the women, like you said, who are on these certain apps, they know that they're looking for something. In my opinion, they know that they want something, right? But I feel like it's hard to know if it seems as if when they meet a man who is on there, they know why they're on there, is right, like, you know, maybe wanting the attention, wanting these things, but it seems as if they're gonna judge the man and say, well, I know why I'm on here, like not telling them this, but thinking this, I know why I'm on here. So the reason why you're on here, I'm judging you for it, and I'm seeing you as weak because I see myself as weak. So it feels like it's hard to like, for a woman to even respect right off the bat, a guy that's coming from the dating apps. What do you think?
That's a good point, man, because if a guy is on the dating apps and he's sort of, it can be like a little bit of maybe a desperate look.
You're right.
Yeah, so I can see what you mean. And a woman, and also with the dating apps, the power dynamic is completely on the woman's side. So the woman holds all the power. Yeah. Normally the guy will be the one who has to initiate the conversation and make the conversation and ask for the date and all that sort of stuff. And I think that's okay if a man approaches a woman on the street. But on the dating app, it's like the woman's sort of sitting up here and the guy's like trying to climb up to get clamor for her attention. And that's an instant red flag, that dynamic.
And that's the crazy thing, is that they know that that's the case. And some don't like blatantly tell you like, oh, you're weak, but they love the attention. They love to play that a little bit. And that's why I say like, be careful. That's all I say. Because I know we got to just experience life, do these things, try these things. But I always just talk about like think about the reasons why we're going on these things in the first place. Where is that coming from? Is it because we really want to search for a wife or a husband? We really want that? Or do we just want to feel some type of satisfaction now, or the clock is ticking?
One of the things that I've really started to look for recently is to try and find to try and plug in with other guys who have similar values to me. Because if you're surrounded by friends all the time who are just like, oh yeah, like we need to just go out, we need to go and get bitches and all this sort of stuff, then it's just going to be, you're going to be sort of chasing that your whole time. But if you sort of plug yourself into some other guys who have similar values and who have ambition in their life and who aren't sort of like desperate for, you know what, all the time, then you're not going to feel that pressure. It's going to be a real relief off your shoulders. So I tend to keep my circle pretty small these days. You know, I like meeting guys like, how old are you, bro?
I'm 30, in my 30s.
So like similar sort of age, you know, and meeting other guys who are Christian, who have similar values, who can have these conversations. And you should never feel self-conscious about the fact that you're trying to be better and you're trying to control your temptations. So I would say for guys, if you feel like, oh shit, like I haven't had a girl in a while, I need to get on these dating apps and quickly get myself so I can tell, then you're in your friendship circle is a red flag.
And and exactly, you got to have people who are willing to be honest with you. I want to ask you really quick, and then the show, time is already winding up. It's crazy, fly by. But I want to show you this clip. I don't know if you've seen it. No, you've seen the dog one on Jesse Lee Peterson's show, right? Is that the one you've seen?
With the dog?
Not that one. We're gonna do this one. It is called Love Language. You heard about Love Language, right?
I've heard of them, yeah.
Yeah. So
we're
I'm gonna play a clip where a lady is explaining exactly what love language is and how she believes it's important in a relationship. Hassan, are you seeing it there? Because I'm not quite.
Yes, sir.
All right, are you able to play it?
I am.
Okay, yeah, please.
It's called the 5 Love Languages. It's about just learning to love your spouse in the way they like to be loved. It's a #1 New York Times bestseller. That each person has a natural preference for how they like to give and receive love. He calls this preference a primary love language. And what that means is that the way an individual expresses or understands or receives love may fall into one of 5 categories. The first one is words of affirmation. So this is things like praise, saying I love you, giving compliments, or verbally expressing care. The second love language is physical touch. This can include sex, but it isn't limited to that. A toddler may enjoy roughhousing, teenagers may like a squeeze from the side, a friend may appreciate a hug, or a coworker may like a high five or a pat on the back. The third love language is gifts. This is not usually about materialism, but more often it's sentimentality. People appreciate something concrete to remind them of the other's love for them. The fourth one is acts of service, doing something for the other person, like cleaning their car or packing their lunch, helping them with a difficult project, etc. The fifth love language is quality time, spending time together. People have a primary love language, and they may not realize that the way they like to give love might not be the way the other person likes to receive it.
So, and mind you guys, you can call in at 888-775-3773. We do have a few moments left here, about a good 6 minutes. So you can call in 888-775-3773 and talk with Jake and Joel. What do you think about love language and what that all is?
I think that as a man, you shouldn't be really caught talking about love languages. It's a very feminine thing. I think it tends to be on the man's side. Like if a guy can't get his wife to have sex with him, he might sort of start to explore her love language. but to be honest, man, like there is a little bit of truth to it in the sense that people do like different things. Like for me, if I'm with a woman, I tend to like physical touch. I like a girl who's like quite touchy and that sort of thing. I don't care about gift giving. But I think with I think all the guys that I know are kind of the same like that. Like they like an affectionate woman. They don't really care too much about gifts. Whereas women like to receive gifts and they like your time and they like your attention. So I'd say it's just depends on the sexes. But what would you say?
I think that I don't think that and that's why I spoke about this not too long ago, and I think that those things can be like nice if that's what people like, but I think that a lot of the times, like it's ingrained that those are signs of love. And I think that those are like you said, I think those are nice things. Like say if you get a gift and you like gifts or whatever, but I feel like those just like puff the ego up, make you feel good. I feel like ultimately people really are looking for like love, like somebody who like.
That's why it kind of annoys.
Respect
Thing kind of annoys me because I think that love is rather objective.
Yeah.
And when you are in a marriage, if you can't acquire somebody's time, then that's a big problem. Or if somebody doesn't want to touch you, that's a big problem. Or if somebody never says anything kind to you, that's a big problem. So if you are somebody who's just not nice to your spouse and you never say anything kind to them, then and you say, "Oh, sorry, it's not my love language." It's just like a cop out.
Yeah, and I think that there was this picture I played a long time ago. There was this 2 lions and these 2 monkeys, and the 2 lions in the photo were just sitting next to each other, the lion and lioness, however it works, and they were just sitting next to each other. And then the 2 monkeys were all over each other. And not that I like the lion, so in my opinion, but not that the monkey thing is wrong, but it's like I should know and the other person should know that love is there, right? Like we're grounded in understanding that love is there, opposed to like trying to prove to each other that love is there with all these things, the touch, the gifts, and all that stuff. Those are like icing on the cake to me. Like it's nice to have those things, and I don't think that they're wrong. But I think that we should identify with those as love. You know what I mean? And just
I think I get what you mean. So like the underlying like objective nature of love is got to be there, and then those things can all sort of be branches of that objective love.
Right, like he's working a lot, so he's busy. Doesn't mean he doesn't love me because I know he loves me, but right now he just doesn't have the time. Instead of thinking like, well, he knows my love language is quality time, he should make the time. No, it's like, you should know he loves you and he's doing the best he can to come home to you when he can to make it work. So that's,
these things do tend to get complicated a lot. And it's very much brunch talk with the girls. And that's why they shouldn't be going to brunch, man.
Yeah,
Get away from those brunches, bro.
We have a call here, and they want to talk about the subject at hand.
Yes, sir.
Manuel, first-time caller out of Canada, wants to talk to Jake.
Yes.
Manuel, welcome to the show. You have a few minutes here.
Oh, yo. Okay, so first shout out to Zenny because he put me on to your show.
Right on, Zenny.
Yeah, de facto producer. What up? But yeah, it's funny that you guys are reviewing this woman because like years ago, before I even heard about JLP and you guys, I was actually following her online, and back then I thought she had like good stuff to say, but then like now looking at it, I just think it's like very worldly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very much like the sort of modern Gnostics, you know? The modern,
exactly.
modern
and
religion.
Like all about like putting in the work and like making the relationships seem like difficult when I think that those relationships, if they're difficult, that they're not meant to be, and people are trying to make things that are not meant to be like meant to be. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. What do you think about?
Yeah, no, I think so as well. It's complicating something that we already have laid out for us. We intrinsically understand love, and we don't need to complicate so much and give ourselves excuses for when things aren't so good. Because when it comes to relationships and love, sometimes things aren't so good. And if you can say, "Oh, it's because they don't know my love language,"
right?
You know,
that's a good point.
Yeah, people are too attached, I think.
Yeah, that's ultimately what it ends up coming down to is when you get too attached and the feelings take over. You end up not being able to see clear. Like your mind, your judgment is clouded, and that's when you end up making silly decisions. But anything else there on that topic, Manuel?
No, that's it for now. You guys are at the end of the show, but I was super down listening to you on JLP before there, Jake.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I think I know about your platform. It's Rattlesnake TV, and that's you said you had like younger folks on there, and like it's Rattlesnake TV.
Yeah, Rattlesnake TV. My audience demographics actually like 40s and 50s mainly, but yeah, we got some youngins on there.
Okay, nice. I'll check it out.
All right, thank you, brother.
Appreciate it, Emmanuel. Call me again.
All right, peace.
All right.
Peace. Bless.
Really quick, because I have to end. Plug all your stuff. I mean, just so the people who listen here can go to your show and listen and stuff.
So, Rattlesnake TV on YouTube, Jake Rattle SNK on Instagram and Twitter. So, did we get that picture of Loyal Kana up? Or?
Oh, you got it? Let me see.
We got to see that before we go.
Oh, there, there's my brother.
Yeah,
that's good. Oh,
he's got the freckles. He's got the freckles and everything, man.
I kind of see the curls and the curls too. Nice. That it might be a cousin.
And
that I
good
don't know
music.
About.
Good
right
music,
on.
man. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it, Jake. Thanks for coming and doing it last minute. A lot of you guys know I just met him this morning, and he was willing to come and do the show. And he's not from here, so I appreciate it.
Man, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. Let's do it again sometime, brother.
Yes, sir. All right, guys. I got to end. American Anchor Baby is coming in right now. You guys know his show is amazing, so make sure you switch over to his show. Follow me across all platforms across the board, Joel Friday TV. And subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff so we can get the message out. Until next time, y'all, I got to go. Bye.